It's been a long road, Warriors fans, and today we're finally diving deep into all the buzz and questions you've been sending about the team during this offseason. There's a lot to unpack, starting with the big question that's on everyone's mind. Will the Warriors go after a true center this year? And what about Jonathan Kuminga? What's his future with the team? As of right now, no one really knows for sure what's going to happen with Kuminga, but we're going to break down all the possibilities and what it could mean for Golden State down the line. Before we get to that though, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. The overall team moves, the strategies, and all the off-season rumors swirling around the Bay Area. Now, before we jump into the nitty-gritty, if you're new here, make sure your notifications are on, because even on quieter days like this Saturday, when we don't expect much breaking news, we want you to be the first to hear if something big drops. Just hit that bell icon next to the subscribe button and set it to all notifications. Trust me, you don't want to miss a beat when it comes to your Warriors. Let's start with one of the hottest topics out there, Walker Kessler. A lot of people have been asking, why isn't Golden State making a move for him? This one's interesting because Kessler was actually on the Warriors' radar last offseason when they were exploring potential trades for a solid front court presence. The talks around him coincided with the Warriors' pursuit of a player like Lauri Markkanen, so you could say he's been on their wish list for a while. But here's the catch: nothing ever really materialized. The Warriors' front office, known for being cautious with young talent, didn't want to give up key players to make that trade happen. On the other side, the Utah Jazz, who control Kessler's rights, set a pretty high asking price, rumored to be the first-round picks plus a young contributing player. That's a hefty toll, and from everything we've seen, Golden State isn't ready or willing to pay that price right now. In terms of fit, though, Walker Kessler would be exactly the kind of big man the Warriors desperately need. He's a true rim protector, standing well over 7 feet tall with a wingspan that allows him to contest shots and control the paint. He's not the type of center you'll see shooting threes or spacing the floor, but his defensive impact is huge. He cleans up rebounds, protects the rim, and can quickly push the ball up the court, making him an asset in transition. These are exactly the traits Golden State lacks at the moment, which makes it all the more frustrating that a trade hasn't come through. It seems like Kessler would be a perfect fit for the Dubs' defensive schemes, but the cost just doesn't line up with what the Warriors want to spend. So for now, it looks like he's staying put with Utah, and Golden State will have to look elsewhere. Speaking of elsewhere, the Warriors' search for a center hasn't stopped there. The team has been eyeing some other options, players who might not be all-stars, but could still contribute solid minutes and elevate the team's interior defense. Think of players like Al Horford, a veteran presence who brings a steady hand and experience, or Quinn Porter, the young second-year player Golden State drafted late last year. Porter surprised many by stepping up in the latter part of last season, especially after the Jimmy Butler trade shook up the roster. He earned a standard contract and showed flashes of confidence on both ends of the floor, even launching threes with the green light from Steph Curry himself. There's still plenty for Porter to improve defense around the rim, finishing plays, positioning, but the front office seems optimistic about his development. They're banking on him growing into a reliable piece that can help shoulder the load inside, while the team navigates the challenges of free agency and possible trades. Of course, this approach means the Warriors are being patient, perhaps even cautious about making any blockbuster moves just yet. Mike Dunleavy, the executive running basketball operations, reportedly has a plan, but it's not crystal clear if or when it will fully unfold. The focus seems to be balancing veteran experience like Horford's with young potential in Porter, and others hoping that combination can hold down the fort until a more ideal center becomes available. The problem: there just aren't many starting caliber centers out there right now who fit the Warrior style and financial constraints. The market is tight, and Golden State's approach is to avoid overpaying or mortgaging too much of their future assets. Switching gears, let's talk about one of the more controversial topics floating around: the future of Joe Lacob, the Warriors' principal owner. There's been a lot of chatter about whether he should be held responsible for the team's current struggles and whether it's time for a leadership shakeup. Fans have pointed fingers, calling for major changes in management after some missed opportunities over the past few seasons. Joe Lacob in particular has been criticized for the two-timeline strategy. He pushed the idea of balancing the current championship window with the development of young players for the future. Critics say that approach left the Warriors stuck in basketball purgatory, not quite contenders, but not rebuilding either, which has frustrated many. A big part of the debate centers around the missed chance to capitalize on draft picks. From 2020 and 2021 years when the Warriors had lottery selections but opted to hold onto their assets, rather than trade up for big long-term pieces. Instead, they bet on the development of younger players like Kuminga, and even some underwhelming prospects, hoping to build around their core stars. Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Andrew Wiggins. Unfortunately, the results have been mixed and the team hasn't quite regained its dominant footing yet. Many believe Lacob's insistence on this dual timeline has hampered the Warriors' ability to go all in on one clear path to contention. But here's the catch: getting rid of Joe Lacob isn't a simple fix. He owns one of the most valuable franchises in the NBA largely because of what Steph Curry has brought to the table over the last decade. Curry is the face of the franchise and one of the greatest shooters in basketball history, and his presence alone has driven the team's worth to stratospheric levels. Lacob's business decisions may be questionable at times, but nobody's arguing that Curry's impact has been anything short of legendary. So for better or worse, Lacob's in charge, and any changes in ownership would be massive news with ripples far beyond the court. Now, speaking of on-court concerns, there's the ongoing question of whether the Warriors will bring in a true center. It's surprising how often this comes up given the history and style of Golden State's team. Sure, they've often thrived with a small ball lineup prioritizing shooting and speed over size. But the truth is there's a real need for someone to protect the rim and hold their own inside, especially in today's NBA, where big men can make a massive difference on defense. When you look around the league, teams with dominant centers often have a huge advantage, whether it's through shot blocking, rebounding, or simply altering opponents' game plans. Is the Warriors coaching staff willing to shift their style? Are they prepared to build the roster around a bigger, more traditional big man? From what we're seeing, they seem to be trying to find a middle ground, someone who can defend and rebound but also stretch the floor a little bit. Al Horford fits that mold, bringing experience and versatility, while the younger players like Quinn Porter add some energy and potential for growth. It's a balance between the present and the future, between veteran savvy and youth development. Now, the elephant in the room for many fans has been the role of Steve Kerr, the Warriors head coach. There's always chatter about whether he should be on the hot seat, especially when the team hits a rough patch. But honestly, Kerr has been the architect of the Warriors' most glorious moments for championships in less than a decade isn't something many coaches can claim. His system, built around Steph Curry's unparalleled shooting and the defensive tenacity of Draymond Green, has revolutionized modern basketball. Kerr knows how to manage egos, keep the team cohesive, and adapt on the fly. People sometimes complain about Kerr's rotations or call out individual players' frustrations with the style of play, like the recent comments about having to pass up open shots to fit into the system. But let's be real, playing alongside one of the greatest players of all time comes with certain demands. You don't always get the freedom to just shoot whenever you want. The offense is designed to maximize Curry's strengths, using constant motion and spacing to create open looks. When defenses focus on Curry, that opens up opportunities for others if they can take advantage. The challenge for the Warriors is adding players who can capitalize on those moments, who can create their own offense when defenses collapse on Steph. That's more a roster construction problem than a coaching problem, so firing Kerr, that's a hot take that doesn't hold much weight given his track record. The front office isn't considering it, and from a basketball perspective, he remains one of the best coaches in the game. Instead, the real focus should be on building around him, finding pieces that complement the core and fit the system he runs. As for the possibility of big trades, the name Giannis Antetokounmpo inevitably comes up. Could the Warriors swing a deal for him or another superstar? Sure, the idea is tantalizing. Giannis is a generational talent who could instantly transform any team, but practically speaking, it's complicated. Giannis hasn't shown any indication that he wants to leave Milwaukee, especially with the Bucks reinforcing their roster to compete for championships. Plus, the Warriors would have to give up multiple assets and take on huge contracts to pull off a trade like that. The luxury tax implications alone would be astronomical, and Golden State's front office has been historically careful with their finances. Instead, the Warriors seem more focused on incremental improvements, adding role players who fit their style, developing their young talent, and maintaining salary flexibility for future moves. The dream of trading for a superstar like Giannis remains just that, a dream for now. So what's the takeaway? The Warriors are in a transition phase, balancing between competing now and building for the future. They're cautious with their assets, aware of the salary cap realities, and looking for smart moves rather than splashy trades. The big question, will they find a true center, is still open. Walker Kessler would have been ideal, but the price was too steep. Veterans like Horford can help steady the ship, while youngsters like Quinn Porter represent hope for the long term. Meanwhile, management keeps working behind the scenes trying to assemble a roster that can keep the Warriors competitive without sacrificing their future. Jonathan Kuminga's future is still uncertain, but he's a key piece in this puzzle. Whether he develops into a reliable starter or becomes trade bait remains to be seen. One thing's clear, the Warriors won't rush decisions. They want to build a sustainable championship contender, not just chase quick fixes. And that's the off-season story so far. Stick around, because as the NBA world keeps spinning, there will be more updates, rumors, and maybe some surprises. We'll keep breaking it all down for you, so don't forget to subscribe and keep those notifications on. As we continue to unpack the Warriors' off-season landscape, there's another crucial layer that needs attention: the team's culture and how it's evolving amid all these roster changes. The Warriors have always been more than just a collection of talented players. They're a franchise built on a foundation of unselfishness, teamwork, and a particular style of play that emphasizes ball movement and spacing. This identity was forged during the dynasty years with Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and the savvy coaching of Steve Kerr. It's not just how they play on the court, it's also the mentality they bring to the locker room. But now, with the infusion of younger players and the uncertainty around veteran roles, that culture is facing a test. How do you maintain the same level of chemistry and trust when some of the core contributors from the championship era are no longer in the picture or are playing reduced roles? This is something the Warriors' leadership has to manage delicately, because the right culture can elevate a team beyond the sum of its parts, while a fractured one can doom even the most talented roster. Take the young players, for example. Kuminga, Poole, and others like Porter are not just rookies trying to find their footing. They're expected to eventually shoulder significant responsibility. But it's a tall order to replace the leadership and experience of Curry or Draymond overnight. The challenge for the coaching staff and front office is to integrate these young guys without disrupting the locker room harmony. The last thing you want is an environment where players are competing against each other for touches or minutes in a way that undermines team success. Interestingly, the Warriors' approach has been somewhat patient here. They are allowing the veterans to guide the young players, giving them room to grow while still holding them accountable. The mix of seasoned pros and up-and-comers creates a balance that, if managed well, could reignite that championship chemistry. It's not guaranteed, of course. Injuries, personality clashes, or simply underperformance can throw a wrench in the best-laid plans, but so far the signs are positive. The team's open communication style and Kerr's player-friendly coaching philosophy are assets in this transitional phase. There's also the external pressure that comes with being a high-profile franchise in a basketball mid-city like San Francisco. The fans expect success, and rightfully so given the Warriors' history. But expectations can sometimes become a double-edged sword. The media scrutiny and constant speculation about trade signings and coaching decisions add stress on everyone involved. For players, it can be tough to stay focused on development when rumors of trades or roster shakeups dominate the headlines. For the front office, it's a balancing act between transparency and strategic silence. In terms of player development, Golden State has some of the best resources in the league. Their coaching staff, training facilities, and analytics department work in harmony to maximize each player's potential. The Warriors were pioneers in embracing advanced stats and incorporating them into daily practices, film sessions, and game planning. This commitment to innovation has given them an edge and is part of the reason they've been able to sustain competitiveness through various roster cycles. But even with all these advantages, player development isn't an overnight process. Kuminga, for instance, has tremendous upside, but is still raw in many areas: decision-making, defensive awareness, and consistency. His development trajectory will be pivotal for the Warriors' future. If Kuminga can become a reliable two-way player who complements Curry's offensive brilliance and adds toughness on defense, Golden State could be set for a resurgence. If not, they might have to consider moving him in a trade for more established pieces. Another interesting factor is how the Warriors handle their salary cap and luxury tax situation. This offseason, like many before, they have to be very strategic. Golden State has always been mindful about managing its finances, partly because they want to keep the core players happy while leaving room for flexibility. The luxury tax is a real consideration for them. It can quickly balloon and hurt the franchise's ability to make future moves. That's why the Warriors often prefer mid-level signings and smart targeted acquisitions over splashy expensive contracts. The salary cap also affects their ability to pursue free agents. Top-tier free agents often demand max deals or close to it, and Golden State simply can't afford to commit that kind of money without disrupting the balance. Instead, they look for players who can fit specific roles: shooters who can space the floor, defenders who can guard multiple positions, or veterans who bring leadership. This approach has served them well in the past, turning role players into key contributors within Kerr's system. Looking at the free agency market this offseason, it's clear that the Warriors aren't chasing marquee names. Instead, they are evaluating a mix of veterans and younger players who might be undervalued or overlooked. Players like Horford, for instance, who can mentor the younger big men while providing steady minutes, or versatile wings who can defend multiple positions and hit open shots when called upon. It's a chess game of sorts, finding the right pieces that won't break the bank but will make the team better day to day. As the draft approaches, the Warriors face some interesting choices too. They hold some mid-to-late picks that could yield developmental prospects, but there's always the temptation to trade those picks for proven talent. The front office must weigh the potential upside of drafting and developing versus the immediate impact of a trade acquisition. This calculus is complicated by the fact that Golden State's core stars aren't getting any younger. Curry, Thompson, and Green are all veterans, with a limited window remaining at peak performance levels. The team needs to ensure the roster can compete now while simultaneously building for the future. We can't forget the impact of injuries on the Warriors' prospects this offseason. Injuries have been a huge hurdle in recent years, especially for key players like Klay Thompson, who missed significant time recovering from major injuries. Thompson's health is a major question mark that could shape the Warriors' outlook. If he returns to form, the team's spacing and scoring ability get a massive boost. If not, they have to find other ways to compensate for his absence. The front office is surely factoring in these uncertainties as they plan roster construction. Similarly, Draymond Green's health and durability remain a concern. While he's the defensive anchor and emotional leader of the team, he's faced some injuries that limited his availability. The Warriors' style relies heavily on his unique skill set, his playmaking, defensive communication, and leadership on the court. Without him at full strength, the team's defense and overall cohesion take a hit. Keeping Green healthy and effective is paramount. One of the more underrated aspects of the Warriors' offseason strategy is their commitment to maintaining continuity. They know that tearing down and rebuilding from scratch isn't always the best path. Instead, they try to build incrementally, adding pieces that complement the existing core. This strategy requires patience, but has proven effective in the past. The Warriors didn't become champions overnight. They grew into their dominance through careful planning, shrewd moves, and a strong organizational culture. Lastly, let's circle back to the fans. Warriors supporters are some of the most passionate in the NBA. They've endured the ups and downs alongside the team, from the initial championship runs to the rebuilding years. This offseason, their enthusiasm is mixed with cautious optimism. They know the challenges are real, but also trust that the organization has a plan.